Fox Urgent live at this hour. Growing international calls for Israel and the terror group Hamas operating among the Palestinian people to halt their fighting. And word just moments ago of another emergency meeting at the United Nations here in New York. I'm Harris Faulkner. Here's what's happened in just the past few hours on this Sunday. Americans among those 13 Israeli soldiers killed today as the military carries out its ground offensive against Hamas militants. 2 of those soldiers held joint Israeli-U.S. citizenship. That brings the military deaths to 18. Many more soldiers wounded. Meanwhile, 2 civilians killed in mortar and rocket attacks in Israel. And among the Palestinians, more than 400 have died in nearly 2 weeks of fighting. Airstrikes leaving parts of Gaza City in ruins. Homes and businesses reduced to rubble, with some civilians trapped below. And as the conflict is now in the heart of a densely populated urban area, tens of thousands of people are fleeing their homes. We've just learned Secretary of State John Kerry is set to go to Egypt tomorrow to try to get a ceasefire deal worked out. John Huddy streaming live on the ground for us from Gaza City. John?
Well, Harris, yeah, so far a ceasefire deal remains elusive. In terms of the city, the neighborhood that you're talking about, it's East Gaza, and we went into that area earlier today, and it was a scene of destruction. Basically, everything was destroyed, and we saw a lot of children being pulled from the rubble, rescue workers doing their best to try to go through the homes. But we arrived there just hours, if not an hour, hour and a half after the battle had ended. There had been a temporary ceasefire agreed upon by both sides for humanitarian aid, and we had a chance to get in there, and it was horrific, quite frankly. I mean, put the politics aside in terms of this overall fight, and what you saw just from a clear human point of view, it was absolutely gut-wrenching. And that's something that I've been saying all day. To see children being pulled from the rubble, to see the absolute destruction, was very hard to see, no matter, again, what your political viewpoint is on this. So that area has been targeted by the IDF, Israeli Defense Forces. It's very close to the Israeli-Gaza border because of Hamas rocket launches, great deal from that area, and also the network of tunnels. And that's been the main objective by the IDF, by the Israeli military, to root out the network of tunnels and also go after those rocket launches, rocket launch sites with airstrikes, including many that we've seen around here, as we've been reporting now for the last few days. On the other side of the fight, 13 Israeli soldiers were killed in the battle, about 60 wounded by the last count. And overall, here in Gaza, as you mentioned, more than 400 Palestinians have been killed, more than 1,700 injured. And of that number, the latest estimate, 40% have been children. And again, the numbers continue to rise as the fighting continues to expand. The ground operation has expanded. More than 70,000 troops are now involved, and the fighting continues. So while Secretary of State John Kerry is planning to arrive in the Middle East to try to broker a ceasefire deal, so far that remains elusive, but the fighting continues. And Harris, we've heard a lot of fighting. We've seen airstrikes in the area. We also heard small arms fire very close to our location, along with several explosions and artillery fire as well.
And John, I know this is usually the time, at least it has been, that you would see a lot of activity, which is why you're dressed the way you are. And sometimes we have seen in recent nights, you have to hit the concrete there. To offer some balance here on this, I know the ground offensive by Israel, but those rockets continue, I understand, from Hamas toward Israeli cities as far away as Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. So this is a tough battle with losses on both sides. Different from wars in the past, though, because social media has really played a huge role in what we see coming from that part of the world.
Yeah, you're right. And real quick, in terms of the rocket launches, we've just seen, probably within the last hour, several rockets fired from very close to our location. And that's why we've had a lot of missile strikes in this area. And the missile strikes have come so close, Harris. I've used the description. It's like putting a glass of water on a table and hitting that table. That's how much it rocks the building that we're in. Social media, you're right, has played a huge role. People tweeting pictures, people Facebooking from inside Gaza as well. And of course, that goes out, that's broadcasted, and that goes out across the world. So that's played a big role in terms of the media aspect of this and social media, Harris.
Yeah, it's been so interesting to watch your reporting. I mean, because these are the hours that sometimes we will see Hamas tick things up from their direction into Israel. We'll come back to you as the news warrants. John Huddy live for us in the Middle East. Thank you. And this